Hi, my name is Esteban Perez. I'm a small business advisor with the Illinois SBDC, or Small Business Development Center, which is located in the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, or the IHCC. My specializations are in accounting, finance, and startups, and this can be a lot to take in, I know. But essentially what I do is I help small businesses, primarily Latino-owned businesses, with aspects like the PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program. So hopefully this guide can help clear up some of the questions and concerns that you might have, because I know that this can be a generally complicated process. And if you followed us in the first round of PPP, you probably saw that new rules and regulations on aspects like deadlines, deductions, and forgiveness were being changed for what seemed like every month. And this is likely to be the process again, because we're still very early. So if anything in this video does change, we'll try to make a follow-up video afterwards based on some of the questions and concerns from our clients. The second round of PPP was just opened up to local community banks in your area on January 11th, along with the second draw applications released on January 13th. This means that you can start the process today, as long as you go to a local bank that you currently have a business checking account with, or by opening a new bank account with a bank that you'd like to start the process with. The SBA is currently prioritizing authorized financial institutions in the beginning of the round to ensure that money goes to small businesses with fewer employees. In the first round, our clients had generally smoother experiences with smaller banks, though I heard Chase just opened up their applications this morning. So if you're currently at a bigger bank, you can probably get started as soon as today or by the end of this week. You could also go with online banking institutions like Lendio, which can vary in client communications as well, but are always available and accessible because they are online businesses. Keeping in constant contact with your bank representative handling your application is important to the success of this process. And hopefully this guide clears up some of the questions that you would have to wait on if you went to a banking representative. So here's some general information on the Paycheck Protection Program loan. It's at 1% interest rate, flat, meaning that it doesn't change over time, and that's a good thing, especially at 1%. The loans go up to $2 million, but are primarily based on a month's worth of payroll expenses multiplied by 2.5 or by 3.5 if you're a restaurant or an accommodation service industry. You can be self-employed, a small business, a nonprofit, or an independent contractor to apply. You don't have to be only a for-profit traditional type of corporation. And after speaking with your financial institution, you're going to need to fill out a form corresponding to your situation. But before that, you're going to need to see if you qualify for PPP in general. You need to apply by the deadline of March 31st, 2021, which is at the end of this quarter. If you or a business partner is a permanent resident and has a social security number, you could also apply. You only need more than 50% of the ownership in the business to be a permanent resident or citizen. If unfortunately you only have an ITIN or work visa, you cannot apply because these are based on federal guidelines that are more strict on citizenship. You could also apply if your business was in operation on or before February 15th, 2020. You could also apply if your gross receipts are down by at least 25% in one quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. It's important to note that this does not mean profit after expenses, but simply the amount of money you receive as a result of sales at the top of the line versus bottom of the line expenses and profit. None of that is needed, just the sales. You could also apply if you don't have more than 300 employees. After 300, you're not considered a small business in the eyes of the SBA anymore. You're also going to need your payroll information or tax information depending on your entity type. And this is going to be broken down by quarter or by years. It's better to just have all your quarters and all your years generated so that if a bank representative or if the SBA asks for this information, you can get it to them immediately. So for your payroll statements, you can export these reports from your payroll software, or you can create a summary using Excel. If you have to manually create one in Excel, include as much detailed information as possible, such as payroll tax breakdowns, the number of employees, and even employee totals if you can. If you have a W-3, which essentially already gives you all of this information, you can use that too. The same applies to your year-end financial statements. You can use Excel, but it's always better to use bookkeeping software, as it'll generally create a report that meets GAAP, given that your bookkeeping is accurate. After meeting these qualifications in this round of PPP, there are some options for the form you will need to fill out and submit to the SBA through your bank. And this will be either the first draw form or the second draw form, which are pretty self-explanatory. If you haven't taken PPP out before, you're going to need the first draw form. If you've already received a fund of PPP, you're going to need the second draw form. And for the second draw, it's a little bit more complicated. So you're going to have previously received a first draw PPP loan, and you must have used the full amount by the time of application. So you have to have already used your amount for its specific purposes, like payroll, like operating utilities, like buying more product, etc. For second draw PPP loans greater than $150,000, revenue reduction evidence must be submitted and can include 2019 corporate returns and fiscal year 2020 business financial statements. So again, these quarterly and yearly statements are going to be asked for, especially if you have a second draw loan of more than $150,000. And a quick note is that it might be easier to go with the bank that you had your first PPP loan with if you're taking a second draw. And this will reduce the risk of complications in processing just because they already have all your information. So moving on to forgiveness. Loans of up to $150,000 shall be forgiven if 1, the PPP lender signs a simple one-page certification where he provides a description of the number of employees that they were able to retain because of the loan, the estimated amount covered and spent on payroll costs, and the total loan value. Essentially, this is a contract that describes the loan and the amount that's going to be used on certain things like payroll. And this is to basically create liability. It's to make sure that you're using the funds correctly and create an agreement between you and the banking representative that's issuing or helping issuing this loan for you. You're going to also attest that the borrower, meaning you, has accurately provided the one-page certification and complied with the requirements of PPP. So this is going to be using the funds correctly, reporting on those funds correctly, following up with your bank representative for forgiveness, etc. You're also going to need to provide relevant compliance documents, such as employment records for the 4-year period following the submission. So just make sure that your business is organized in the way that it's organized to apply for the PPP after you've applied for the PPP as well, because you're still going to need to be providing information. So in summary, here are 5 of the main takeaways on this guide. 1, you need to apply for the PPP loan through your bank that you have a business checking account with. 2, the rules for qualifying this year are generally the same. So if you qualified last time, you will most likely qualify again, and vice versa. 3, you will need to have organized financial statements like payroll summaries, income statements, and balance sheets from 2019 up to 3 years or 4 years after applying and submitting the application. Just to be safe, this can come from software or manually made in Excel. To apply for the second round of PPP, you need to have fully used up your first funding amount and stayed in compliance with the use of payroll and other operating expenses. And finally, try to use the 7A and EIDL loans as options if you did not receive a PPP loan. There's always something out there. So hopefully this guide clarifies some of the questions that you have on the PPP application and forgiveness process. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the IHCC and ask to speak with a business advisor. Or ask your bank representative if you've already started the process and need some extra help. The IHCC also offers business advice on many topics, including starting a business, financing, and government contracts. So reach out in the description below to get more information. Thank you.